Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the 25 Days of Real Christmas, a series where we review some old and new holiday favorite films. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at The Nightmare Before Christmas. Jack Skellington, king of Halloween Town, discovers Christmas Town, but his attempts to bring Christmas to his home causes confusion. Now, John, this is a classic favorite for me. I think when I was younger, I'll give you a short, fun little anecdote. I went to private school in my younger days. I was one of those kids. Yeah, I know. I was one of those kids. Surprise, surprise, right? I'll say this. If you liked Nightmare Before Christmas, you were automatically an outcast. It wasn't the most popular film to like as a young kid, especially, in that age range there, where you were considered different, you were considered odd. I do like to point out that now, Nightmare Before Christmas is a huge marketing tool. You can't go into a Hot Topic, a Spencer's Gifts, a Disney store without this movie being at the forefront and center nowadays. Right. It's popular that this movie is way more mainstream than I think it actually wanted to be.
Ooh, Jack, you made wounds ooze and flesh crawl.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This movie is so popular that they overlay the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland every year for Christmas and Halloween with this movie.
And that should tell you something. That's the Haunted Mansion, right? That's got some Disney legacy there. The fact that they go in there and they're willing to alter it just to, satisfy the Nightmare Before Christmas fan base, that should speak volumes for how much Disney loves this movie. I think the whole irony is Disney didn't really want this movie. It was like a long time coming. It took Tim Burton a long time longer than you would think in his career to get this film out. And not even that, it's kind of like a anti-establishment letter to Disney, because it takes the Disney themes and just says, no, that's too uncool. We're gonna be like Disney's dark, edgy cousin. And Night Before Christmas succeeds on every single level, in my opinion. From when it came out back in 1993 to now, this movie looks just as good, if not better, because in my older age, I can marvel at the technical accomplishments that were made in the making of this film.
Just because I cannot see it doesn't mean I can't believe it. I think this Christmas thing is not as tricky as it seems. And why should they have all the fun? It should belong to anyone. Not anyone, in fact, but me. Why, I could make a Christmas tree, and there's no reason I can find I couldn't handle Christmas time. I'll bet I could improve it too, and that's exactly what I'll do.
And we talked about Tim Burton before, right? We talked about Beetlejuice. I said Beetlejuice was, if not maybe, my favorite Tim Burton movie. This is probably a tie, in all honesty. I love Beetlejuice. I love that movie so much. Night Before Christmas is right there with it, in my opinion, especially as far as Tim Burton films are concerned.
It just has so much to do with how well it's done and how it connect with everybody.
What's the first thing we talk about right off the bat has to be the stop motion. Everything in this movie is amazingly handcrafted.
It's time! Making Christmas, la la la! It's almost here and we can't wait! So ring the bells and celebrate! 'Cause when the full moon starts to climb, we'll all sing up.
It's Christmas time!
And like I said, it partners with, like you were kind of saying, Tim Burton's art style. If you've ever seen any of Tim Burton's work, it's very irregular. And maybe that's the best adjective to describe it. It doesn't look normal, his work. Everything is very angular, very unsettling at times, just very awkward. And everything they made in this movie, every character, every background, everything matches his work down to a T. Examples I like to bring up are just the colors that they use. For Christmas Town, we get all these bright, beautiful colors, the white backdrop with the snow and the greens and the colored lights. Every color that you can think of is thrown in there. Compared to that, we go to Halloween Town. Halloween Town, and I've seen this when they've talked in documentaries about it, they only could use 4 colors. in Halloween Town. He said that was his only note when they were building the sets and building the characters. They could really only use 4 main colors for the Halloween Town. They can only use black, white, orange, and a little bit of green. That's all. That's all they were allowed to use in Halloween Town to put it together. Otherwise, they wanted he wanted all those colors axed. And that comes across, right? That comes across, especially with just everything. I mean, and then you go to the real world where the coloring's just kind of minute, right? Everything's kind of faded, kind of dull. Because you have to wonder, is that how Tim Burton views the real world at times, where everything's kind of dull and boring, and then all these other worlds have these more extreme just designs overall?
I saw on Prop Culture, they show a couple of the props and stuff for this movie, and I think it's Danny Elfman. He says that he gets recognized so much for his role in this movie and everything.
Not for
he says,
Ongo Bongo or whatever, when he was in Weird Science. He was the lead singer in that band. I guess people don't talk about that. That was a weird fact. Did you know that?
And yeah. Well, I heard that on that too.
Weird Science. Yeah, that's Danny Elfman for all you people at home, in case you were wondering.
But even like Danny Elfman was saying, like, this is all Tim Burton.
It is.
This is all his creative idea. This was everything to do with him. He's like, I get a lot of credit for it, but he goes, every time someone talks about this movie, he goes, I immediately go to Tim Burton.
I mean,
and it's just,
I agree and I disagree with that. I think there was a lot. I mean, you can't deny it. Tim Burton's the spark. If anything, he's not the director of this movie. That's always like the common misconception a lot of people have. Henry Selick is actually the director. Tim Burton was only a producer on this movie. He didn't have time to do this because he was working on Batman Returns. So he said, all right, I got Henry Selick's a close friend. He actually, when they were in Disney, because again, another here little fun fact, Tim Burton was a Disney animator for a couple years. He worked under the internship program. Him and a bunch of other people that he worked with actually went and worked together on Nightmare Before Christmas. Henry Selick was actually one of those people who was also doing like 2 shifts, I believe. He was an art animator on Batman Returns, working on character design and whatnot over there, and he was directing Nightmare Before Christmas all at the same time. So good for him. That's crazy double duty to work on 2 major films like that. But I think it's a joint effort overall. And I have some things I'll talk about later that I think really add to that. But, Tim Burton, of course, is the brainchild. His designs, he was in charge of coming up with the designs, right? Everything was his notebook, essentially. Minus Sally, I think, had some alterations that kind of, his original idea wasn't the one that they really went with. There was another one they went with later. But overall, all the monster creature designs, as unsettling and creepy as they are, some of them, if you really look at them, the kid with the stitched eyes closed really creeps me out for some reason.
There goes Christmas.
I feel like nobody really talks about that one. That one's definitely one of the creepiest ones for me. Even the clown with the tearaway face.
I am the clown with the tearaway face.
Here in a flash and gone at the trace.
It's like there's just weird things in this movie, but they all work. But like I'm getting at, they all came from his notebook, but you really got to give it credit to those sculptors, the people that really sat there and had to make those things come to life. Everything in this world feels like his art style, and everything connects like a puzzle. You're putting a puzzle together and each piece is fitting in perfectly. That's what this movie feels like. Nothing really feels out of place. There's one character that tonally does, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but overall, everything feels like it lives and breathes in this world perfectly. And I think a lot of that has to do with like the puppeteers and the craftsmen just bringing that art style. I mean, Tim Burton, you can draw whatever you want, and that's great. But those craftsmen are really the people that lifted this movie beyond what it should be in any respect.
Here, let me show you.
oh yeah, and some of the puppeteers' work is just amazingly done, and some of it still holds up today. Like,
even as old as this movie is, a 93 film, when I watch it now, I don't expect it to be as good as it is. You could definitely see some things here and there. Some of the limited effects they use kind of show through a little bit, and some of like the joints are a little more apparent the more high def that you get, I think, in the making of the movie. But overall, if you're not like looking for it, you're not going to find those errors in this movie. It's phenomenal and remarkable that this movie still holds up. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we've talked about practical effects on this channel. I've talked about it to nauseum on this channel, to be clear. This movie's the perfect example of that. For the most part, like, 98% of everything in this movie is actually there you're actually seeing it. It's not animated. It's something that's physically there, that's moving, and that just adds so many layers to it. It's unimaginable, and quite frankly, it's beautiful, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just the shots that they catch in this movie are phenomenal. Just the camera work is above average, you could say, for a Disney movie. The silhouettes are just remarkable. I mean, the character of Jack's design, I absolutely love. He could have just been a simple skeleton man, right? He could have just been whatever, just a normal skeleton looking guy. But no, he's exaggerated.
With the slightest little effort of my ghost-like charms, I have seen grown men give out a shriek. With the wave of my hand in a well-placed mode, I have swept the very bravest off their feet.
His silhouette, if you see Jack's silhouette behind the moonlight, you know it's Jack Skellington.
And since I am dead, I can take off my head to recite Shakespearean quotations. No animal nor man can scream like I can with the fury of my recitations.
Every single time. He's kind of got that look like a Mickey Mouse or a Batman or one of those characters. I think that's why Tim Burton worked so well with Batman, because he had such an established silhouette that he could play with. Jack Skellington's kind of like the same thing. When you see that character, his long legs, his spider-like movements that are slick and unsettling, but warm and friendly at the same time in a weird way.
But look, there's nothing underneath. No ghouls, no witches here to scream and scare them or ensnare them. Only little cozy things secure inside their dreamland. What's this?
It just all plays and works extremely well together.
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of that goes into not just the animators and the puppeteers and everything that comes along with it. It's the voice acting. The voice acting is phenomenal in this movie when we get it. You can argue there's not a lot of it, for sure, but the actual, not saying singing, there's a lot of singing, so I'm kind of separating the two. We get Catherine O'Hara, who I love, if you couldn't tell. We've already talked about her like 3 times so far, I think, this month. She just keeps popping up, you know? She did a great job as Sally. Like, she really brought that character to Sally to life, who was added in later and given a bigger role. Her foil to Jack Skellington was really brought to life.
Jack, I know how you feel.
You also had Chris Sarandon, who does the voice of Jack Skellington. He doesn't do the singing for Jack Skellington. That's actually done by Danny Elfman. But Chris does a really great job of playing this like intrigued Jack Skellington who wants something more, and that really comes across, in my opinion.
There's got to be a logical way to explain this Christmas thing.
The voice acting spectacular. The plot and pacing in this film always keep up. Do you feel like the movie's always moving? Right? I feel like we're never stopping. It has that perfect pacing for a musical, where sometimes when you watch a musical, it's a bit slow. Like there's scenes where everyone's talking for a while, then a song comes up. Even Disney can be accused of that, I feel like, at times, where you're kind of just waiting for the next song, where you're just waiting for that next big Disney moment. This movie, I feel like, balances that very well, in my opinion, to where even though there's little bits of dialogue in between, it doesn't overshadow the vocal performances. Everything feels very even and very well paced.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially the weird thing that I felt with this movie too was I've almost always have watched it, like seen the movie on TV, like cable TV or stuff.
Right.
And I never actually realized how short this movie really is, because you know on cable like they always make it like there's 1,000 commercials or whatever.
This is a very short movie, right?
Yeah, like this movie's not that long at all, and like just sitting down and watching the whole thing from like without any commercials or anything, the movie's so much better in that way, and it's always good, but it's so short that I was shocked.
It's short and concise.
Short it was.
Exactly. It's very short, very concise. It knows the story it's telling, and it's going right through it, giving you the plot points. It's not messing around. Coming in at an hour, 16 minutes or so, it really hits that point home to where it's telling you the story. It knows exactly what it wants to talk about. And you got to give it praise for that. I mean, especially in an age where we get a lot of overbloated movies, especially animated movies, sometimes just really outstay their welcome. And I think this is the most beautiful thing, and you can't talk about this movie without it, is the music. More so than anything else, I think the music elevates this to ridiculous heights. Danny Elfman just captures everything that you want about the character Jack. he wasn't supposed to sing the songs. He was actually against singing a lot of the music in this movie, but Tim Burton actually talked him into keeping his voice, in the soundtrack and being the singer for Jack Skellington.
I don't believe what's happening to me. My hopes, my dreams, my fantasy.
Hence why we got a different actor for, his other normal speaking performances. Danny Elfman just really brings this range. A lot of it is, too, he spoke in interviews about this where he actually related to Jack on like a deeper level. So I wonder if that really comes out more in his vocal performance. Because a lot of Jack's journey is just being fed up with your current life and looking for something greater. And Danny Elfman said the same thing about his life at that time.
Oh, somewhere deep inside of these bones, an emptiness began to grow. There's something out there far from my home, a longing that I've never known.
He had the big hit with Weird Science, and then he was done with the rock star life. He wanted to move on. He was looking for that next great venture.
There's an empty place in my bones that calls out for something unknown. The fame and praise come year after year, does nothing for these empty tears.
And I think that added like an emotional level almost to Jack's songs, to where everything feels very real and raw and emotional. And I know, again, it's just an animated movie. Kevin, you're getting all sappy, you're getting all weird. It is. It's just such a deep level that you connect to this character. It transcends a normal Disney character, in my opinion. And I think this is the most telling of a good musical. If you sit down and just listen to the music from beginning to end, you don't need to hear the dialogue in between to understand the story that's being told. You can tell this whole story by just listening to the soundtrack.
And will we ever end up together? No, I think not. It's never to become, for I am not the one.
And if that's not a feat to be commended, I don't know what is, because that's incredibly impressive, to where you can get that story across with such emotion that I don't need you to just stop the movie and tell me about it. You just sang about it, and I totally know what you're feeling and what you're getting at.
My dearest friend, if you don't mind, I'd like to join you by your side, where we can gaze into the stars and sit together now and forever. For it is plain, as anyone can see, we're simply meant to be.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I also agree with you too when you're saying Danny Elfman felt something with this character, like he saw himself kind of in it.
Right.
I think you could feel that in the tones of what he brings to this. I feel like if you yourself are acting as a character or portraying a character,
Right.
if you can actually feel for this character in that kind of way or understand what they're going through, I feel like that always helps their performance, and it makes it even more, I guess you would say, in touch with it. It
Right.
makes it even
It
better.
elevates
than
it.
it
Simply
could have
put, it elevates the material beyond belief. You believe what the character's saying, and between the motion that they use with the animators animating him and, using the stop motion, it comes across just brilliantly. And just to be able to tell a story in such a powerful way is quite brilliant. One of my favorite scenes is actually the graveyard scene, when Jack's in the graveyard and he's lamenting about everything that just happened. He's talking about, how he failed at Christmas. He messed everything up.
What have I done? Find a deep cave to hide in a behind me only dust and a plaque that reads, "Here lies poor old Jack."
It didn't turn out the way he wanted to, and then he's like, oh well.
Well, what the heck? I went and did my best, and by God, I really tasted something swell. And for a moment, why, I even touched the sky, and at least I left some stories they can tell. I did
my best, you know. I'm gonna move on. I know who I am now. I tried something new. It didn't work out, but that's okay. Like, my life's gonna go on, and I can still exceed at what I know I can do in my heart.
I felt just like my old bony self again. And I, Jack, the Pumpkin King. That's right. I am the Pumpkin King. And I just can't wait until next Halloween. 'Cause I've got some new ideas that will really make them scream. And by God, I'm really going to give it all my might.
And that's a pretty powerful message for such a dark, spooky movie. It really is there, and you can really read the room and feel it. Other things, and like we've said before, this is just very different than most of Disney's offerings, especially maybe more so at that time. Even now, I would argue, this movie's definitely darker than a lot of things we've seen from Disney. Even Frankenweenie, which we touched on earlier on this channel, in some ways isn't as dark as this movie, because this movie's just dark from beginning to end. When Disney came out with the animated Frankenweenie, they were hoping to get that success with that film. Didn't happen, obviously. It wasn't nearly as good as this. Everything about this is unique, and I think if you're looking for the ultimate Danny Elfman movie and Tim Burton movie, that the two of them together, like if you want to find out what defines their style between vocalist / music performer and then director / animator, this is the movie. Right, this is what a lot of people in the industry, our age, younger, older, whatever the case is, they found some kind of, I feel like, inspiration from this movie. A lot of people, you go back and ask them, like, what was your favorite animated movie? And I think it's a lot of it in our age group. A lot of them say now Nightmare Before Christmas. Back then, they weren't so keen on saying that, looking at all you. But it still holds up. It really does. This is just a classic. And the story has just so much to do with that, too. How brilliant is that idea? That stupid idea. Just take Halloween and Christmas, and what happened if they met each other?
You don't need to have another worry about Christmas this year. What? Consider this a vacation, Sandy. A reward. It's your turn to take it easy.
What happened if one discovered the other one and they were actually worlds? How stupid is that idea, but how ingenious is it at the same time? And I do have one important question for you, John. When it comes to this movie, and this is the big hot question, this is the big one everybody asks, when should you watch this movie? Should you watch it on Halloween? Should you watch it on Christmas? Or is there another time you should watch this film? What would you consider this movie more? Now, we're reviewing it, obviously, in our Real Christmas series, so I put it into the Christmas category. But I could have put it just when we did our Real Terror Month. I think it could go either place. But John, in your heart of hearts, where do you think this movie really lands? Halloween movie or Christmas movie?
I guess I'd go Christmas.
Okay.
I feel like more of it is taking place during Christmas than it is Halloween. So that's why I would go with Christmas.
It's tough.
Than Halloween.
It's a really tough, because you got a classic Halloween song and you have a classic Christmas song essentially in this movie. You have This Is Halloween, which
This is Halloween, this is Halloween, pumpkins scream in the dead of night. This is Halloween, everybody make a scene, trick or treat, tell the neighbors gonna die of fright.
which is, God, that's an amazing song for Halloween. And then you have What's This?
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere. What's this? There's white things in the air. What's this? I can't believe my eyes. I must be dreaming. Wake up, Jack. This isn't fair.
Which works as a classic Christmas song. I've heard that played on the myriads of Christmas playlists. It just comes through. And you know what? I'm going to cop out here. I watched this movie in November, so I get the best of both worlds. I'm just going to say it right now. Kevin, you didn't decide. I did decide. I threw this on in November. That's when I watched this movie. Before we wrap up, though, there are just two little things I just want to bring up that they're kind of negatives. I wouldn't say they're necessarily negatives, but they're things that I've noticed over my rewatching of this movie through the years that I thought I'd share with you guys. I think the side characters in some instances seemed a little bit shelved. in some ways. Like, we don't get as much time as I really would have liked, which, you know, maybe that attributes to the hour, 16-minute runtime. I'm not too sure. I do wish we got a little more time and a little more engagement with some of the characters, but you can make the argument, you know, this is Jack's story, so do they really matter in the grand scheme of things? I guess not, but, you know, again, it's something that you could just acknowledge. Like, I noticed really, like, how much this really just is Jack Skellington's movie. Everybody else is kind of just living in it. That's really what this feels like. Not that it's a bad thing. That's just something, you know, I've noticed, I think, the more times I've watched it. And the last thing, which I've noticed more and more, kind of just, it's gotten to my attention where, out of all the characters in this movie, there's only one that really does truly seem out of place, and that's Oogie Boogie. Oogie Boogie, for me, overall, just doesn't mesh with everything else that happens in this movie. Everything, we have Halloween Town, we got the Christmas Town thing, we got the real world, and then we have Oogie Boogie. I mean, not that he doesn't work, he's just tonally out of place with this movie.
Well, what have we here? Santa Claus, huh? Ooh, I'm really scared. So you're the one everybody's talking about.
We have that on the riverboat gangsta singing the songs and, you know, having the gambling machines and...
Oh, sound of rolling dice to me is music in the air. 'Cause I'm a gambling boogeyman, although I don't play fair.
I don't know how that works in the Halloween Town universe. Like, I know he's the boogeyman, he does what he wants, but I don't know how the gambling theme really fits into Halloween. It just seems kind of strange. When you really, like, sit down and think about it, I don't know how he fits in there. And also, the Jack fight with Oogie Boogie isn't the most compelling thing. I mean, it's cool, especially the way they animated. Like, good for them for doing all that work with the stop motion, with the swinging swords. And the gun shooting. And him fighting Oogie Boogie. I feel like it was just that, if anything, this movie was trying to be unconventional Disney. That felt the most conventional Disney, to where there had to be some kind of bad guy to where Jack had to defeat him and save the day.
How dare you treat my friends so shamefully!
Now look what you've done!
That was maybe the only conventional thing that was really done in this movie. It kind of stands out, in my opinion. There's just nothing wrong with him. He stands out, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree or not, but especially his whole theme doesn't fit into that Halloween universe. Like, you have the trick-or-treaters, you have the mayor with the spin-top head, and you have vampires, the werewolves, creature from the Black Lagoon, got that axe in his head who's like a zombie, Mr. Frankenstein, you know, Finkelstein, Sally, who's like a come-to-life marionette, and then you have a gambling sack of worm bug things. Again, it's just an observation, not meant to be a dig. I love the character. I love the Oogie Boogie song. I think it's awesome. I love the Snake Eyes scene. I don't know. It always makes me laugh.
One more roll of the dice ought to do it. What? Snake Eyes? Good. 11.
Every time I roll a Snake Eyes when we play like a board game or something, I think of Oogie Boogie. It's hard not to. Like, what? Snake Eyes? And he slams his hand. Love it. Love the character. Just, again, over the year, I guess when I was younger, it wasn't something I really cared for or looked for just to see, but you have to admit he is a little out of place.
Yeah, I could see that.
That being said, I think we're ready to give our final scores. I'm going to give The Nightmare Before Christmas an A+.
Surprised, aren't you? I knew you would be.
Classic movie. It's a masterpiece. What can I say? I love The Nightmare Before Christmas. I love everything about it, from the music to the art style. It has everything I could ever want in a movie. It really is near perfect. It's a near perfect masterpiece, in my opinion. I'd argue for you to find another Disney movie that really carries the same weight as this. While this movie will always be looked at as like the dark, creepy cousin of Disney in some respects, I feel like when you talk to like animator snobs and stuff like that, they won't really, like, they'll talk about Nightmare Before Christmas, but it's not on the same level as maybe some other Disney classics. And maybe there's something to be said there. I don't know. But in my opinion, Nightmare Before Christmas is a Christmas/Halloween, and if you're me, November classic. John, where do you stand with this film?
I give this movie easily an A.
Haven't you heard of peace on earth and goodwill toward men?
Now!
Like, the whole movie is just great, and I feel like I also find it almost ironic in a way how when this movie first came out, so many people were like, oh, it's a terrible movie, oh, it's not good.
Yeah.
And then nowadays, everybody's like, oh, I love this movie all since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like wondering, like, who are the true, like, people that liked it, and who are the people that are
Me.
now
100%
just, like,
me.
jumping on the bandwagon?
Me, who had his little Jack Skellington action figure back in the day when he was in grade school. Just saying, I was right, kids.
And somebody was like, hey, you're a loser for liking that movie.
Or when you bring the movie in, they have like the show and tell day, and you show that movie, and everyone's like, look at that weirdo trying to show Nightmare Before Christmas. Kevin having his little VHS tape waving it in front of the other kids. It's a good movie, guys. If you haven't seen it, like we've said before, what the hell are you doing? Go check it out. Nightmare Before Christmas is a classic. Just watch it as soon as you can. All right, John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us over on YouTube. The Real Movie Guys on YouTube. Like this if you like this movie. Tell us your opinion on this movie. Were you one of the original ones, or did you just slowly crawl into something that you liked? You can also tell us on Twitter, at TheReelMovieGuys on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. Let us know. Maybe, is this one of your top favorite movies? Do you? Also, we'll pose to you the question that Kevin gave. Do you consider this a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie? Let us know. You could also listen to us on many podcasting platforms such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, greatly appreciate it. Just search out Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you all again so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That guy over there, he's John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. And don't forget to tune in all this month for the holiday festivities. Continue during the 25 days of Real Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy Holidays. We'll catch you next time.